Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Friday, November 30th, Ukraine bans Russian men from entering the country. Pope Francis sends a message to Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople on the Feast of St. Andrew, and cities are lighting up to say no to the death penalty. In the Vatican, I'm Francesca Merlo. Ukraine's government has imposed a travel ban on most Russian men except for humanitarian reasons in some cases. The announcement follows the imposition of martial law in several regions of Ukraine after a naval clash between Ukrainian and Russian vessels in the Black Sea. Regional correspondent Stefan Boss reports that Ukraine's leader has also expressed concerns about an alleged Russian military buildup near Ukraine's border.
Kiev says it will not allow Russian men aged 16 to 60 into Ukraine till at least late December. An exception will be made for what it calls humanitarian cases, such as those traveling to funerals. Russia says it is not planning retaliatory measures. Additionally, martial law has been imposed in 10 Ukrainian regions until December 26th, which limits civil freedoms and allows for the mobilization of troops and the build-up of air defense systems. The developments came while Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko expressed concern that Russia may prepare for an invasion after Russian forces fired on and seized 3 Ukrainian boats and 24 sailors last Sunday. Poroshenko claims to have evidence that Russian military tanks are gathering near Ukraine's borders. He says Moscow is furious that Ukraine doesn't want to be what he calls a colony of Russia or part of what was the Russian-led Soviet Union. Instead, his government seeks closer ties with the West, including with organizations such as the European Union and NATO military alliance. There has been growing hostility between Kiev and Moscow since Russia's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine in 2014. Russia has also been accused of actively supporting separatists in Ukraine's east with troops and weapons in a conflict that has killed more than 10,000 people. For Vatican News, I am Stefan Bos, reporting.
In Afghanistan, at least 23 civilians, including women and children, were killed by an air raid carried out by the United States earlier this week, according to a United Nations investigation. The attack occurred during a firefight between Afghan special forces working with US advisors and Taliban fighters late on Tuesday in rest of Helmand province. In Yemen, fearing attacks by the Saudi United Arab Emirates alliance, fishermen have cut their fishing zones from 100 nautical miles to 25. Hodeidah, home to Yemen's most vital port, has been the target of a fierce pro-government offensive to retake it from Houthi rebels who have held it since 2014. The danger of being shot or intercepted at sea has forced fishermen to stay close to shore. The fishermen of Hodeidah are now facing either starvation at home or death at sea. Pope Francis on Friday met with members of the association Mission Shahbaz Bhatti. During the encounter, he encouraged them to persevere in their evangelical witness in order to assist religious minorities who are victims of false accusations and to find concrete ways to combat poverty and modern forms of slavery. Lydia O'Kane reports.
In March of 2011, Shahbaz Bhatti, a Pakistani politician and the country's first federal minister for minorities affairs, was assassinated in Islamabad for his struggle to promote human equality, social justice and interfaith harmony in Pakistan. Inspired by the thought and vision of Shahbaz Bhatti, the association Missione Shahbaz Bhatti was founded. The aim of the association is to continue the tireless work of this politician to create a society where everyone can live with dignity and respect. 7 years on from Shahbaz Bhatti's death, the association was received in audience by Pope Francis in the Vatican on Friday. Included in the group was Paul Bhatti, who paid homage to his brother in a speech to the Pope. In his words to those gathered, Pope Francis said he was glad to know that Shahbaz Bhatti is loved and honoured by many in Pakistan today, and that his sacrifice is bearing rich fruits of hope.
E mi rallegra sapere che oggi egli è amato e stimato da tanti in Pakistan.
He continued by saying that one fruit of the sufferings endured by Christians is the growth of groups and associations, like your own, he said, that build bridges of fraternity throughout the world, overcoming differences of language, culture, and at times also of religion.
Vi incoraggio ad andare avanti con questo stile evangelico.
The pontiff encouraged the association to persevere in this evangelical witness, which, he said, joins firmness to meekness in order to assist victims of false accusations and to find concrete ways to combat poverty and other forms of slavery. I'm Lydia O'Kane.
Following the meeting with Pope Francis, Paul Batty spoke to Lydia O'Kane about the current situation facing religious minority groups, including Christians in Pakistan.
I think it is a very complex situation. It is because it's not the whole Pakistan, it's the group of extremists, I can say. Even we can't say extremists, a group of people who are problem for the moderate Muslims too, because they are convinced to die, kill, or live with an ideology which has nothing to see with the religion. And especially this ideology is often used against a Christian, against the other non-Muslim communities in Pakistan. So but Pakistan's Muslim, Pakistan Authority, Pakistan Judiciary at present, they're taking very bold steps to eliminate in some way this ideology. So I think after the sentence of Asia Bibi, there is not only good news of her freedom or her liberation from the case where she was involved, but there is great message from the judiciary of Pakistan and from the government of Pakistan that they want a moderate Pakistan, they want Pakistan where everybody can live without fear and all the religious minorities should be protected.
That was Paul Batty speaking there to Lydia O'Kane. Members of the Service Centre for Volunteers, Sardinia Solidale, met with Pope Francis on Friday in Paul VI Hall in the Vatican. He expressed his appreciation for their efforts to help some of the poorest people in the world and the welcome they extend to newcomers in Sardinia. Sister Bernadette Rees tells us more.
Pope Francis began by expressing appreciation for the work of the Volunteer Center, calling it as generous as it is a necessary service to the least. He called Sardinia your beautiful island, rich in natural treasures, history and art, but marked also by poverty and hardship. The Pope mentioned particularly that he appreciates how they reach out to some of the poorest people in the world, as well as to people who have moved to Sardinia in search of peace and work. Since the center brings together various volunteer organizations, the Pope encouraged them to continue in this type of collaboration. Thus, he said, you can promote the culture of solidarity. The benefit is that the center remains aware of the real needs of the poor through such organizations as parishes who are always in direct contact with the people in need. A culture of solidarity is one that enhances volunteerism, he said. When coupled with Sardinia's robust Christian roots, it is a way of practicing love of God and neighbor, he said. Thanks to this evangelical nymph, assistance maintains its human dimension and is not depersonalized. This is the particular gift that volunteers contribute in society, Pope Francis said. In conclusion, the Pope encouraged those present to continue to accomplish their mission passionately, seek all possible ways to build and reawaken in public opinion the need to be committed to the common good and to assist the weak and the poor, he said. I'm Sister Bernadette Rees.
Pope Francis has sent a message to Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople on the occasion of today's liturgical feast of St. Andrew. In the message, the Pope noted that despite differences between the Catholic and Orthodox churches, the two communities are called to be a sign of hope by working together for peace, human dignity and care of creation. Robin Gomes has the details.
The message of Pope Francis was read Friday morning by Cardinal Kurt Koch, the president of the Vatican's Pontifical Council for Promotion of Christian Unity, who headed a Vatican delegation to the Divine Liturgy at the Patriarchate in Istanbul, Turkey, on the feast of St. Andrew. We can work together today in the search for peace among peoples, for the abolition of all forms of slavery, for the respect and dignity of every human being, and for the care of creation, the Pope said in his message. In the first major division among the followers of Christ, the Byzantine Church based in Constantinople, in what is Istanbul today, and the Rome-based Catholic Church culminated in a bitter split in 1054, known as the Great Schism. However, since Patriarch Athenagoras and Pope St. Paul VI, in the wake of Vatican Council II, Pope Francis noted that the Holy Spirit has enabled them to resume fraternal dialogue. Noting progress in relations between them over the last 50 years, the Pope said that they are experiencing communion even though not full and complete. Pope Francis said, "United we give a more effective response to the needs of so many men and women of our own time, especially those who suffer from poverty, hunger, illness, and war." He recalled Patriarch Bartholomew's participation, along with other church leaders and representatives, in the Day of Prayer and Reflection for Peace in the Middle East, held on July the 7th in Bari, southern Italy. In a world wounded by conflict, the unity of Christians is a sign of hope that must radiate ever more visibly, Pope Francis added. I'm Robin Gomes.
In Indonesia, 87 prisoners are still on the run after escaping from Lombaro prison in western Aceh province. The inmates, who escaped as 113 on Thursday, had hurled water bottles laced with chilies at guards and used barbells to smash windows. A Honduran court has found 7 people guilty of the murder of prize-winning indigenous and environmental rights activist Berta Cáceres in 2016. Their sentencing is scheduled for January 10th, and they face up to 30 years in prison for the murder conviction. And finally, if you are in Rome this evening, you'll notice that the city's most famous monument, the Colosseum, is enjoying an especially stunning illumination for one night only. Sean Patrick Lovett tells us why.
Actually, it's more than just an illumination. It's called video mapping, a multimedia technology that allows you to project beams of colored lights or video images onto a solid surface, in this case, the Colosseum, with extraordinary graphic and three-dimensional results. And it's not just happening in Rome either. Tonight, over 2,000 cities around the world will illuminate their most iconic monuments with spectacular video mapping effects. That's because today is World Cities for Life Day, a global and annual festivity that makes a unified and universal statement: no to the death penalty. This global mobilization was first held in 2002 and is now the largest contemporary planetary call to abolish the death penalty. It's organized by the community of Sant'Egidio, which has been campaigning for years to achieve a universal moratorium on this form of punishment. Just for the record, there are still 53 countries in the world that continue to execute individuals in the name of the state. In August this year, Pope Francis approved a revision to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, stating that a new understanding has emerged of the significance of penal sanctions imposed by the state, and that the death penalty is inadmissible. So, if you see a building in your city illuminated with 3D technology tonight, you'll know you live in a city for life too. Just remember, that monument comes with a message: no to the death penalty. Say it out loud. I'm Sean Patrick Lovett.
That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, be sure to visit our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. You can also like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Many thanks go to Gaetano Paradisi in studio. In the Vatican, I'm Francesca Merlo.